A lot of questions surrounding the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays so far this season. Can you trust that they're a good baseball team, or is it all smoke and mirrors after a series sweep and a win streak that's the best of the season? We'll get into it.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's free. You might as well do it. You get your podcasts, your shorts, your videos, your live streams, the whole ordeal. And if you're listening anywhere else, we appreciate it. Go follow us on all of our social medias because it takes no time at all and helps us out more than you guys know. A lot of questions. Carter, I think the big one for today, and you know, every time an off day rolls around, we have a similar conversation. How good really is this team? Or is it all smoke and mirrors on the fact that they just played one of the worst teams in baseball and they had success? We'll talk about that. We got to talk about some of the bullpen additions with Erik Swanson returning to this bullpen that's been very good so far this year. As well, of course, the series preview. We'll get into all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Blue Jays. Carter, I guess let's kick things off here. We got a lot of comments over the past couple days on our posts, on our YouTube pages, everything, and just sort of what's been going on around Twitter as well. Is a lot of people not believing that this 2025 Toronto Blue Jays team is for real, that they are good, that they will have success, that it is a little bit of smoke and mirrors surrounding the fact that they just swept the Oakland Athletics in a 4-game set. They've won 6 of their last 7 games. Carter, I guess my question is, how do you feel about all this?
When you talk about this team and you talk about the expectation regarding the Toronto Blue Jays, the theme of the season we've talked about multiple times is consistently inconsistent. They've beaten very good baseball teams. They've also lost to bad baseball teams. You just don't know what's going to happen day in and day out. So when you look at this Oakland Athletics team, I know we had a comment that they're technically not the Oakland Athletics anymore. I said that it's pretty much like Twitter for me. Like it is X now. I'm going to call it Twitter. I'm going to call the Oakland Athletics or the Sacramento Athletics the Oakland Athletics until they play in a real baseball stadium. So I guess I'll apologize for anyone that gets upset by the fact of calling Oakland, but I'm going to continue to do that. So
I'm not apologizing for that.
With the Athletics, their pitching staff is horrific. Their bullpen especially not very good whatsoever. JP Sears has been bad. Jeffrey Springs has been one of the bright spots in that starting rotation. Gunnar Hoglund, again, Blue Jay draftee, not very good either. So you didn't have necessarily the greatest pitching matchups in this series. So for me, it's not that the Blue Jays can't hit good pitching. It's not that, this is kind of like a make-believe series because it was against the Oakland Athletics. Yes, the Athletics were struggling, but you got to beat up on the bad teams. You got to beat any team that you play against, no matter who's in front of you. And that's what the Toronto Blue Jays did. It's like what we've seen last year, what we've seen in 2023, honestly, what we've seen the last few years of the Toronto Blue Jays is that you have a series, whether it's against the Athletics, it's against the Marlins, against the Rockies. It's usually against not very good teams, and they put up absolute stinkers. It's like they almost play down to their competition. Like that's a thing in Major League Baseball. I don't necessarily think it is. That's almost what the feeling you get is when the Toronto Blue Jays play a team that's not necessarily good. So I said this on the last episode. I don't care what baseball team you're playing. It is very hard to sweep a 4-game series. It's very hard for things to go right 4 straight games in a row. You got to have good starting pitching. You got to have good bullpen. Obviously, you got to have an offense that was producing. Obviously, we cannot expect the Blue Jays to score 8 runs in every single game in a series. You got the Philadelphia Phillies coming up. That is going to be a tough series. So the biggest thing with this team, it's not that they can't be good, because we've seen stretches where they've been really good. They swept the Mariners. They swept the San Diego Padres. Those are both very good baseball teams. Some people say that they're not. I don't care. But if you say that, because the Mariners have a great pitching staff, the Padres lineup's unbelievable. They have a very good pitching staff as well. If you don't think those are good teams, I would like to ask you which teams are good in the MLB then. So this team does have the ability to beat these good teams, to go on these big stretches. Just how consistently can this baseball team play? So I don't think it's a question of, does this team have the skill to play a good brand of baseball and play with some of the top dogs in this league? It's just, can they consistently do it day in and day out and play competitive baseball? And we're going to have to see that, obviously, with a bunch of tough series coming up, obviously leading off with this Philadelphia Phillies series coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, Carter, my biggest thing throughout this entire offseason was hammering the fact that you have to be able to beat the bad teams. You're going to go up against teams that are going to be very hard, and you might be happy or okay with getting away from a 3-game series with one of those games against some good teams. So you're going to go through stretches where, man, this team isn't playing very well. You're going to have to pick up at least one of those wins. But then when you play the bad teams, you have to be able to get the majority of those wins. And I think that's something that we've seen the Blue Jays be okay at, is capitalizing on the fact that when they do play a bad team, they have been able to. Now, am I saying that this team is great, that they're a playoff team? No, because I'm skeptical as well with you, with everybody. I'm not 100% sold that this is a good baseball team yet. I need to see them continue and be steadily over 500 for me to make my assessment that they are a good team. You can't be a 500 or below 500 baseball team and expect the people that cover and watch this team every day to be convinced somehow that you're a good team. No, I need to see them stack wins and stack wins in a way that pushes this team well above 500. And yes, that's going to mean beating some better teams. That's going to mean pulling out somehow 2 of 3 against the Phillies. It's going to be getting 2 out of 3 against Minnesota. I don't even say that's stealing. You need to get 2 out of 3 against Minnesota. And as this goes along, Carter, I guess the biggest question is the consistency aspect of it. Can this team show up on a day-to-day basis and maybe not win every game, but be competitive in most of the games they play? I can't have them show up and lose 2-1 and me be happy the fact that, oh, well, they scored a run and it was close. Well, it was close because the offense didn't show up. If the offense shows up and gets, 6 runs and, hey, your pitching had an off day, I think that's a little bit more acceptable for me at this point of the season. I need this offense to be more consistent for me to be sold on any type of playoff appearance that my team wants to have.
See, and one nice thing about this consistency aspect of this offense is that now you do have some guys taking strides that it's not necessarily going to be like the Ernie Clement 10 for 16 or whatever we did have in that Oakland Athletics series, but you have some guys that are stepping up. Aston Barger obviously looks unbelievable. He is taking massive strides. Is he going to keep up this kind of production? That's not necessarily what we're asking for. We just need him to be serviceable, be a middle of the order bat. And also, you have Daulton Varsho on the IL right now. You have Anthony Santander on the IL right now. If they can come back and be just the prototypical Varsho and Santander at the plate, that does increase the team's floor as well. Nathan Lucas has been very good all season long. Jonathan Colossi has been contributing. Miles Straw, when he's been in the game, has been contributing as well. Tyler Heineman, another guy who we didn't necessarily even have on this team when we did our opening day predictions for this lineup. And this has been a guy who, again, has been very good. Are we going to expect him to hit around 400 this entire season? Obviously not, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is starting to get some strides. That's looking at his at-bats are looking a little bit better as well. But Bichette's starting to find the power. And this is another thing that kind of supports that this offense is at least getting a little bit better from April to May. I'm just going to go over what this team did in April versus what they did in May. So in April, they had 15 home runs. Obviously, there was a massive power struggle during this month. 231 average, a 634 team OPS. That was just not going to play. That's why we were harping on this offense so aggressively, because it was absolutely horrific to watch. 83 WRC plus. And then just from the pitching side of it, a 4.13 ERA, a 1.24 WHIP. Not the worst numbers from your pitchers, but again, you want that to be a little bit better. This is how this team's performed in May. So they have 38 home runs in May. They had 15 just for reference in April. So that's a massive upgrade as well. 268 average compared to 231, a 785 OPS compared to the 634. That's when if you start hitting home runs, you're starting to see that OPS be coming up. You got a little bit more timely hitting, a little bit more power throughout this lineup. And who would have thought the runs were starting to come? WRC plus of 124. And the pitching did get a little bit better as well. I think mostly the bullpen, when you look at this, they really completely dialed in the May months here. 3.73 ERA and then a 1.15 WHIP. So this team has been gradually getting better, especially offensively in the month of May. And you have some guys that, again, if you do this kind of platoon approach, you put these guys in scenarios where they're going to succeed. You put Ernie Clement in against lefties, put Nathan Lucas in against righties. You throw Jonathan Colossi in specific spots where you need him to have good at-bats. It's just about setting these younger guys up for success. I think John Schneider and the Toronto Blue Jays team have done a very good job at doing that so far. And that's why I am fairly optimistic that this team can get better and can go on a little bit of a run here. But as for my expectations in totality, I haven't really fluctuated too much there. It depends what we do at the trade deadline. It depends what kind of spot we're in at the trade deadline. But I predicted this team to have, it was either 84, 85 wins. I was somewhere in there, just missing the playoffs. But I wouldn't be surprised if they were battling to be a fringe wild card team by the end of things. So right now, as for expectation, you just get like it's the same thing that you've kind of said every single episode, Braden. It's just don't get too high, don't get too low. As much as it was very fun to watch them beat up on the Oakland Athletics, the season is more than just a 4-game set. There's 162 games in the season for a reason. So we just got to see a more consistent brand of baseball, but there have definitely been signs pointing to that and pointing to this team being a little bit more consistent than we have seen throughout these first couple of months.
Yeah, and I don't want to take anything away from this team. I know that's that's a little bit of a pessimistic take for me, just in the sense that I need to see more. But I don't also want to take anything away. You want to see this success throughout the Athletics series. You want to see the battle and the grit and the fight to still somehow win that Rangers series that they probably didn't deserve, but I guess the Rangers didn't either. So there you go. Somebody had to win. So there you go, right? You need to come out of those games that you still don't have your best stuff and somehow find a way to win games. And I think that's something that we've seen more and more of this team is not only the timely hitting, but the heart to come back into games, to grind out wins. It's stuff like that that turns a mediocre team into a good team. So can that continue to happen? I think they need it to, I guess is my sum up. You need to continue to battle and have the grind and the mentality to be able to go out there and win games you maybe shouldn't. And that's what I'm going to be wanting to see, because I think we've seen Barger do it a couple times. We've seen Ernie do it a couple times late in games where, they're down and they need to come back. Now, I think the nice thing would be to see is, and we even saw that from Bo a couple games ago, I think we're watching and wanting Vlad to be that guy, right? The guy in a big moment that he comes up and steals you a win. And I'm still looking for that out of Vlad. I think the clutch, the timely hitting from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., to cement him as, it's going to be the case that Vlad is eventually the, one of the best Blue Jays of all time. It very well could happen. But I think for him to cement himself into that conversation needs to be the clutch, timely, big hitting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that we just haven't seen yet. And so, again, I think that's a big component to how successful they have of a season.
It's just, again, it comes from just all of your guys and their expectations on what they're going to do for your baseball team. You can't have the expectation that everyone's going to be Aaron Judge, everyone's going to be Bobby Witt Jr. You have to have some role players on the team. You got to have some guys that are okay kind of playing, every other day or even every third day and still be fairly productive. You got to have your Vladdies and Bichettes be your superstars of your team for a reason. So with that, obviously, you just need your guys to perform as expected. But there is one more thing I do want to bring up before we do head into this second segment, is just looking at this lineup based just on paper. When you're looking at it right now, you're going to have guys like Alan Roden. You're going to have guys like David Schneider in this lineup fairly often, guys like Jonathan Clase, guys like Nathan Lucas. If you're not a fan of the Toronto Blue Jays, you might not necessarily know who these guys are. And these guys don't necessarily have the greatest careers that are consistent, that have been consistently producing throughout their entire baseball careers. Again, a lot of young guys, a lot of guys that have not been in the major leagues for that long. So this is the question I'm going to phrase for you right here. Are you a little bit worried about some of the way this lineup is going to shape out, again, with that lack of consistency throughout their career, lack of just consistent production for 4, 5, 6 years, kind of the ones you see with Varsho? You kind of know what you're going to get from Anthony Santander. There's a lot more wild cards throughout this lineup. So does that give you a little bit of worriness? Does this make you a little bit nervous for what the offensive production is going to be in these next 12 or so games?
I guess it is a question mark, but Carter, I go back to this point. I think the Toronto Blue Jays, we all forget that this is a very young team still. And a lot of these guys aren't household names, but they're very young, still trying to find out what kind of players they're going to be. I mean, we look at Addison Barger, right? A very young guy. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, 2 still young guys. And I mean, you can even throw Varsho in there too, right? A lot of these guys are still fairly somewhat young. And some of these guys that are about your fringe players, even if you wanted to throw in your Ernie Clement, who's a little bit older in age, but they're just starting to come into their own. So do I expect that, if I look at this team on paper, well, it's tough to say anything, because I think the one big thing we were hoping for this season was these younger guys and these a little bit unknown guys to take their steps. And I think you're hearing people talk more about Ernie Clement, how he is against left-handed pitching, and, top 5 in all of baseball this season for average against left-handed pitching, a guy that probably, a lot of people didn't know. And so if we're just going off a name value, I mean, you maybe think this team's hurting, but with the production that you've been getting over the past week and a half from this offense, even if you want to go further than that, I think that they're well equipped to be able to win ball games. It goes back to the same fact: do they show up to play that day? And that's a concerning part. So no, I'm not overly worried. I think they have the potential and the ability to be a good team offensively, but it's just who shows up and who doesn't.
See, for me, this all goes back to the point of what is expected of some of these players on this team. Now you don't have Anthony Santander, who's supposed to be your power hitter. You don't have Daulton Varsho, who's supposed to be this kind of middle of the order guy. Now, if you have Nathan Lucas coming in as a role player, if you have Jonathan Clase kind of being at the bottom of the order, bunting when he can, beating out infield singles, that's going to be okay. But when maybe these guys, again, being younger guys, not having the most luxurious careers, especially with some guys being injured right now, they're going to be having to be asked to do a little bit more than they would have before. So I think there could be a little bit more out of pressure. They might try to do too much for these specific situations. Like you said, there is a lot of young players on this baseball team. I've been seeing some people compare Addison Barger to Josh Donaldson already after this weekend.
Oh my God.
That is absolutely ridiculous how we're going this far one way with Addison Barger. As good as he has been over these last 30 games even, like that is a crazy comparison to make from a guy that just has really had production this year in the Major League Baseball. So I think that's kind of the fans putting a little bit more pressure on these guys as well. But as a guy like Addison Barger, you got to, again, ride the highs. You got to have the confidence when you're up to the plate. But one thing that does worry me a little bit is these guys kind of making the moment a little bit too big, especially with some of these guys that you were supposed to be relying on in these situations, either struggling or being on the IL at this point.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think that comes as being a Toronto Blue Jays player, to be honest with you. I think the expectations are always going to get overblown and absurd because you have an entire country's media focusing on you. I've been on 3 different radio stations in 3 different provinces talking about the Toronto Blue Jays over the past couple months. And that tells you all you need to know. There are a lot of fans everywhere. There's a lot of media coverage, and people are talking, and everybody wants clicks and everybody wants attention. And if anybody ever compares Addison Barger to Josh Donaldson again, I will bash my head into a wall. All right, let's not do that quite yet. Maybe eventually we could say Addison Barger's amazing. But right now, if I hear that again, I'm going to throw my phone into a lake. So I hope all the best for Addison Barger, but anybody that's spinning that story, enough. Please, enough right now. Let these players be able to play the game and find their own way in the MLB without putting an immense amount of pressure on these guys in their second season in the league, please. Carter, in saying that, we want to talk a little bit about the bullpen. We want to get into our series preview, and we got to prep because we have our first ball game tonight, so me and you got to lock in here. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the bullpen, the addition of Erik Swanson back into this pen. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is sponsored by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the most reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, the free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the free Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is SH5 for 5% off your first order, and that is at supplyhouse.com.
So, Carter, the return of your boy, Erik Swanson, back to the team. I know I'm excited. I know you're feeling very confident in his abilities. I guess, how do you feel about him being back? I'll throw it to you because I know he's a guy that you've loved talking about over the past year and a half that we've had this podcast. I know last year didn't go his necessarily way. Rough start to that year. Happy that his family got through the tough time there that was thrown at them. But he's back in the MLB. He's back with the Toronto Blue Jays. We've seen one outing now from him. How do you feel?
One nice thing about this team right now is that I didn't necessarily expect the bullpen to be kind of where they are right now. So one nice thing with Erik Swanson is that you don't have to throw him in the 8th inning. You don't have to throw him in high leverage right now because you do have Jeff Hoffman, as much as he had, kind of been wishy-washy sometimes in these closing up situations. But Mason Fluharty's been very good. You have obviously Brendan Little, who has been very good. Nick Sandlin should be back relatively soon. This could be a guy that, again, you do use in high leverage, has pitched a lot more recently than Erik Swanson at the major league level. When Jimmy Garcia comes back again, maybe right now you have to, fill that role, but you have a ton of guys in this bullpen that can be higher leverage arms. So you don't have to throw Erik Swanson right into the fire. You don't have to throw them necessarily against the other team's best players. Like, you're not going to have to throw Erik Swanson against a Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and then Trey Turner. It's not exactly how you want to set this guy for success, especially with his first couple of games being back. So with Erik Swanson, the biggest thing is just going to be how the control is of that splitter. Again, same kind of idea with Kevin Gausman. You don't want it to be moving as horizontally as often. You want it to be moving straight down, play off that fastball. Erik Swanson kind of having the same idea as that Kevin Gausman pitch mix. Pretty much predominantly a 2-pitch pitcher. So I think the biggest thing with Erik Swanson, it's just going to be easing him in back to his role. You don't have to put a ton of pressure on this guy with the way this bullpen is standing right now. But Erik Swanson always going to get a bad rep just because of how he went over to this team. When you trade a slugger like Teoscar Hernandez, then you kind of see these power struggles. A lot of guys quick to kind of hate on Erik Swanson. I have never really been that guy. When Erik Swanson played with the Mariners, when he first came to this Toronto Blue Jays team, he was absolutely dominant. He doesn't necessarily even have to be that dominant, especially with this way the bullpen is standing right now. It's just if he can be like just a solid reliever, kind of like a little bit better of a Chad Green is kind of what I'm expecting here. If he can just be a little bit more reliable than Chad Green, I think that's going to be a very good thing for the Toronto Blue Jays for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, again, we don't need to put more pressure on these guys, especially coming back a third of the way through the season. You got to let him find his way here a little bit and use him in specific roles. And I've always believed in what Erik Swanson can do. Yes, that trade is going to haunt many Blue Jays fans' dreams forever, probably. But I don't think you can put that against Erik Swanson. I think he is going to be a good piece for this team. Now let's just take that at face value that, hey, we have a guy that's going to be a good reliever here, instead of comparing him to the trade, because it's never going to go well. Nobody, I don't think in their right mind, is ever going to be thrilled about that trade. But in the same respect, now that that's out of your mind, just be okay with the fact that we have Erik Swanson here, who's going to come in and do a job. And you're 100% right. That's exactly what I was going to say about Erik Swanson, was that I think you need him to be a better Chad Green. And as much as I don't want to throw any shade at Chad Green, I think he's fine. But I think Erik Swanson has always been the little bit of a step up from Chad Green. And if you can get that from him with the additions that this bullpen has made, with the guys that you've, the diamonds in the rough that you found in guys like Mason Fluharty, and what Brendan Little has become this season as well.
And what Yariel Rodriguez has been doing. I forgot to throw him in there as well. Didn't want to leave him out. But yeah, that's another righty who has been unbelievable in the month of May. So that's another guy where right now, the way Yariel Rodriguez is pitching, and just with the lack of outings that Erik Swanson has had, I have no problem going to Yariel Rodriguez, especially with Jimmy Garcia out and these higher leverage situations, probably being my number 2 trusted right-handed pitcher out of the bullpen on this team right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's done everything. He's proved us wrong, Carter. I know you were not a huge Yariel Rodriguez fan at the beginning of this year, just because it was fair. The guy couldn't
I don't know if I'd
pitch.
say I wasn't a fan of him. I just wasn't. It was the theme of the team right now, the inconsistency, because you didn't know what you were going to get from Yariel Rodriguez. Sometimes he would look like he did in May, and then other times it's like he hasn't thrown a fastball in his entire life, and he had no idea where the baseball was going. So it wasn't that I wasn't a big fan of him. It's just I didn't think you were going to get a lot of consistent outings from Yariel Rodriguez. But clearly, this transition to the bullpen has been very, very beneficial to him.
Yeah, he's proved us all wrong, right? And you know what? This is the guy, again, we said when this deal was made with Yariel Rodriguez that you were going to have to give this guy time to reacclimate to the league and or not reacclimate, I guess, but get into MLB pitching form, right? He wasn't in this league. He needed some time to understand what worked, what didn't, and what he needed to improve on to best these hitters. And obviously he's done that. Now, can he keep it up again? We hope so. I don't want to flat out say that he won't fall off the wagon, but it might happen. But right now, Carter, you're absolutely right. I think he has to be your number 2 most trusted guy, which is a crazy thing to say, but an awesome thing to say, because I think when that deal was originally made, the outlook for him was to be eventually a starting pitcher. But if you can get a great bullpen arm out of that, right now that does the job that you need it to.
Well, and this bullpen has been very good up to date right now, but it's just like I'm just gonna go over the list of bullpen arms that we could have again when everyone is healthy. Albeit, are they all gonna be healthy at the same time? You got to hope for that, but it is baseball, so you might have one guy kind of working through some stuff at all times. But this bullpen is completely healthy. This is the guys that you're rolling out here. You have Jeff Hoffman probably being your closer, Jimmy Garcia right behind him, 1A, 1B, whatever you want to say that is. Brendan Little, you could have 1A, 1B, 1C. How good these guys have been. Then you have Yariel Rodriguez here, not necessarily in order at this point, but then Erik Swanson, you have Chad Green in here, Mason Fluharty, Yariel Rodriguez, and Nick Sandlin. That's without Ryan Burr. That's without what are you going to do with Eric Lauer when you have Max Scherzer coming back, when Alek Manoah comes back, what kind of role is he going to have? So when this pitching staff does get healthy, I think this staff can be very good. The question is going to remain and will continue to remain, how consistent can this offense be? What is this offense's floor? We have seen what the ceiling is against, not a very good pitching team. But the biggest question of the season is the offense. And another question that we're going to have to figure out as well is that at the trade deadline, if this team is in a position to buy, what positions are they going to address and who is the big fish that they are going to go after? Because Ross Atkins clearly is on the hot seat if things do not go well this season. So I expect him to be insanely aggressive at this trade deadline. So it's going to be a fun little bit of the rest of the season here. You got a tough kind of stretch coming up where you got the Phillies, you got the Twins, then you got the Phillies, I believe, again, and then the D-backs, if I'm right there. I think the Cardinals are in there as well. But those are your next 5 series. I think I might mix up the order. But throughout these next 12 games, this is when you have some guys out. This is where if you can kind of just stay afloat, if you go 6-6 through these next 12 games, I'm going to be more than happy from what this baseball team has done, especially with the opponents they are going to have in this next little stretch.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to tee up this next series right after this short break. We obviously had a lot to talk about today with the off day happening yesterday before the game. So we had some time. We thought we'd dive into a couple of things, but now it's time. Series preview. Let's get into it. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. I said it. Sometimes knowing where to handle how to handle your finances is tough. And if you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did my money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I talk about it all the time. We moved to the city. DoorDash or Skip the Dishes is readily available. And instead, sometimes that's where Monarch Money was a huge help to me, because I realized, I can't be spending money on DoorDash every second day. I have to understand that that's where a lot of my money goes, to stupid purchases, to too many hats, whatever it may be. Monarch Money really does help. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Half off is crazy. Go take advantage of that. All right, dude. Series preview here. Blue Jays, Phillies. I'm sort of pumped about this one. 3-game set. Now, again, I'm going to go over the pitching matchups here, and this is an interesting one. You got Sanchez versus Francis. You got Abel versus Berrios, and then you have Jesus Luzardo versus Chris Bassitt, which I think is going to be a game to watch, with Jesus Luzardo being sort of a weird pitcher this year. I think it's been when he's good, he's great. And when he's bad, he's horrible. So it's what Jesus Luzardo are you going to get? And that, I think, depends on what offense the Toronto Blue Jays bring to face him that day. Carter, I guess out of all those games, how do you feel about the Phillies? I mean, they're an amazing baseball team. How do you think this Blue Jays team can match up against them?
This is where they're going to kind of prove the doubters wrong, and they're going to have to put up or shut up in this series. Again, the narrative recently has been, the Toronto Blue Jays aren't necessarily playing the best competition out there, which, again, there is a little bit of validity to that. The Texas Rangers offense is horrific. The Oakland Athletics, again, have lost 1 million baseball games recently. So this is going to be a big series to kind of, prove that the Blue Jays are a team to be messed with. And again, this is without Anthony Santander. This is without Daulton Varsho. This is without some of your bigger thumpers on this offense. But one nice thing about this series is that the Blue Jays were supposed to face Zach Wheeler as well in this series,
Yeah.
but their pitching rotation was adjusted because Zach Wheeler's wife is having her due date. She is pregnant and going to have a baby at any time. So they kind of dodged a bullet there, but Christopher Sanchez is still very good. Mick Abel, a guy that is a highly touted prospect, but again, hasn't really pitched a lot in the major league. So I think if you're going to take advantage of any game in the series, it has to be that second one. Especially when you have Jose Berrios on the mound. But there's, again, a lot of good players on this baseball team. Kyle Schwarber, there's Bryce Harper, there's Bryson Stott, Trey Turner. You go down the list. I think Bryce Harper should be back for the series. Again, you can't really, I can't be upset about that because you got to get lucky with Zach Wheeler. And I'm never going to pray that a team does not have some of their best players, because I know you're not a big Bryce Harper guy, but I'm going to love watching Bryce Harper play against this Toronto Blue Jays team. Again, I will be a little bit worried for Bowden Francis in this series, again, going against a pretty solid lineup. For me, I wouldn't mind a series loss here if you lose 2-1. It's not the end of the world. I think it kind of brings Blue Jays fans back down to earth, and maybe the sky will be falling once again. I know it won't be on this podcast, but just with the Blue Jays narrative, just how quick this kind of the fan base is to turn tides on this team. I think that could be a scenario that we do have. But it's going to be the thing where can the Blue Jays hit against good pitching? And I wanted to bring this stat up because I knew the Philadelphia Phillies were going to have some good pitching matchups in this series. But this is from John Boy. He has a team OPS versus pitchers with an above average ERA. So the number one team against pitchers with above average ERA is the Arizona Diamondbacks with a 787 OPS. That's very good. Then you have the New York Yankees at 754. Then you have the Toronto Blue Jays as number 3 at 727. Their team OPS in general, 719. So if anything, that says the Toronto Blue Jays are somehow worse against worse pitchers. Tell me how that makes sense. That's just how the way the Toronto Blue Jays team works. Consistently inconsistent. Very hard to predict this year. So they're facing some pretty good pitchers in this series. So if we're talking about the stats, if we're talking about the way things have gone, you would think that the Blue Jays would be able to put up some runs against these pitching staffs. But we're going to have to see how consistent this offense can be. We're not expecting 8 runs, but we can get 3 or 4 in a lot of these games. I think that will give the Blue Jays a decent chance to win.
Yeah, Carter, and you got to think as well, going into this series, the Phillies are on a 4-game losing skid here again. So a team that maybe, down in the dumps trying to get back on their horse. Now, maybe that first game is massive. If the Toronto Blue Jays can win that first game and sort of, it does it maybe feel like a little bit of a nail here for the Phillies. So I think that would be a good tone setter game for this Toronto Blue Jays. So I am going to go 2-3 or 2 of 3. I think they're going to, this is a little bit of hoping, but I'm going to say they win the first, win the second, lose the third in classic Toronto Blue Jays fashion. So again, we'll have to wait and see. I'm very excited for this one. Bryce Harper is back, which is actually great for my fantasy teams, but for me personally, not so much. I'm not a huge Bryce Harper guy, even though I think, again, you want to be able to beat good teams with their best players. So, because that's what you're going to have to do in the playoffs eventually. So I think this is a great test series for this Toronto Blue Jays team who, yeah, you're right, people have been going absolutely nuts about. And if I hear that Addison Barger's Josh Donaldson thing one more time, like I said, there's going to be a hole in the wall for my head. But in saying that, Carter, we got to get out of here. We have to race off to a baseball game. And, it's sort of weird having a day off here for the Blue Jays as it usually is. But, yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching, listening, whatever, tuning into all of our content. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave us a comment about your thoughts and feelings down below. And, yeah, we're going to have to do another mailbag episode eventually here, too. So we want to get all your guys' thoughts and feelings out here on the pod so we can discuss them. Carter, anything else before we kick out of here?
Yeah, I'm just going to give my series predictions. I said that I wouldn't be upset about a 2-1 series loss. That is unfortunately what I am going to go with. But the Blue Jays have been mashing left-handed pitching. I think the Ernie Clement show is going to continue. Christopher Sanchez being a left-handed pitcher, I think they're going to be able to score some runs against him. But then they should take advantage of Mick Abel. They're not going to be able to do it. And I think that's where they're going to start to fall off a little bit. And then it's going to be a good game, I believe, in that third game. But again, you can't win every single series. You can't win every single baseball game. If they just play competitive baseball and the offense shows up, I'm not going to be overly upset about this series against the Phillies. They will have a chance at revenge, obviously, later on down the road, or maybe a chance to keep their momentum going against the Philadelphia Phillies. Like you said, they were on a 4-game losing streak. The Blue Jays have gotten kind of lucky with a lot of their pitching matchups recently and just, getting teams at pretty good times. When they played the Padres, they were kind of stumbling a lot offensively. You get the Oakland Athletics. Again, it's not the worst time to get them ever, but you get them when they're playing some of the worst baseball I've ever seen. And now you get the Phillies on a 4-game losing streak. So hopefully you just take advantage of teams that aren't necessarily playing their best brand of baseball. But I just want to say for one last time, thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys again tomorrow.